The first learning objective in section 5.2, which is actually also the last learning objective in this section, is to identify principles of experimental design. A researcher is interested in the effects of exercise on mental health and proposes to use stratified random sampling to ensure representative proportions of 18 to 30, 31 to 40, and 41 to 45-year-olds from the population. She will randomly assign half the subjects from each age group to exercise twice a week and instruct the rest not to exercise. A mental health exam will be conducted at the beginning and at the end of the study, and the results will be compared. What type of study is this? This is, first of all, an experiment because the researcher is assigning or imposing something on the subjects. She is telling them whether they should exercise and how much or not exercise. And so this is the treatment that is being imposed upon the individuals, which makes this an experiment. Specifically, we call this type of experiment a randomized block experiment. And that's because the subjects in the study are first divided up into groups. In this case, it's by age. So we have these 18 to 30-year-olds, 31 to 40-year-olds, and 41 to 45-year-olds. And within each of those age groups, we're assigning the treatments of whether or not the individuals should exercise. So does the study make use of blocking? Those age groups are called the blocking variable. So yes, the blocking variable is age group. We have this way of dividing up the observational units before we are dividing them up into treatments. And that way of dividing them up before we assign treatments is called the blocking variable. Does this study make use of blinding? Blinding means that you don't know which group the subjects are in, which treatment group the subjects are in. In this case, there is no blinding because both the researcher and the subjects know whether they are exercising or not. With some treatments, it's impossible to blind because there's no way to make it so that these observational units don't know whether they're in the exercise or non-exercising group because they're being told whether to exercise or not exercise. Part 4 says, can the results of the study be used to establish a causal relationship between exercise and mental health? Justify your answer. In order to be able to establish a causal relationship between the explanatory variable and the response variable, in this case, whether or not they exercise and their mental health assessment, we need to satisfy the principles of good experimental design. In this case, we do. The principles of experimental design were incorporated. Mental health status was controlled for by taking an exam both before and after the study, so we have controlling. Subjects were randomly assigned to either exercise or not, so we have that randomization element that we need. And we can assume that there were multiple subjects in each group, so we have replication as well. And the final part here says, can the results of the study be generalized to the population at large? So in order to determine a causal relationship, we need the principles of good experimental design. In order to generalize to the population at large, we need to have a good, random, representative sample, which we talked about back in chapter 1. And in this case, we have a stratified random sample, which is a good random sample that we can assume is representative of the population. So we can also generalize to the population at large.